Let's talk to Dan Hodges, commentator at the Mail on Sunday. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, I'm very, very keen on the headline on your piece today in the Mail, because it looks like something I would have written, where you basically are having a go at the government of service. What a load of cobblers, you say. I couldn't have put it better myself.
Well, I mean, what can you say? Here we are again. And again, this is something you and I have talked about, not just over the last few months since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. It's something we talked about before the election. And I remember coming on this programme, and I remember talking to you, and I remember saying, we're getting all this holier-than-thou stuff from Keir Starmer. We're getting all this government of service stuff from Keir Starmer. We're getting all this attacking the Tories for their sleaze and their corruption. And I remember saying, you know, this is just a massive hostage to fortune, because when he's in government, all of this pious self-righteousness is going to come back and bite him.
Of course.
So it's proved. And we're here again. It's another day. It's another negative headline and another completely avoidable headline. I mean, this one comes under the heading of "you couldn't make it up."
Right.
This is the man who pledged if he was elected he would clean up politics.
Yeah.
He's just had to offload his anti-corruption minister because she has been caught at the centre of an international corruption scandal.
Right.
And again, yesterday, Keir Starmer tried to brush it off. He tried to sort of wheedle out of it by saying there'd been this investigation by the head of Ministerial Standards, and he'd basically given a clean bill of health.
And that's not true, is it?
She hadn't broken the Ministerial Code. There was no financial impropriety on her part, but reluctantly, she had to go anyway.
Yeah.
And if you read the report, the reason she had to go was quite clear, because McManus says very clearly, because of her links, because of Tulip Siddiq's links with members of her family who are part of this political party in Bangladesh that's just been ousted from power in a coup, her role, it was effectively incompatible with her role as anti-corruption minister.
Also, one of the reasons for the investigation into her auntie is that she's alleged to have used money that she obtained corruptly to buy properties in London, of which Tulip Siddiq appears to be a recipient.
Yeah, now, obviously, usual caveat, Tulip Siddiq denies all wrongdoing. But as McManus equally identifies, Tulip Siddiq, he seems to give her the benefit of the doubt in terms of saying it was inadvertently misled people over these properties, and he's clear about that. And this is the thing again that I just do not understand. I mean, as I say today in the Daily Mail, I know Tulip Siddiq. I've known her for a number of years. She actually replaced my mother as MP for Hampstead, and I've known her. She's been a good MP. She's dedicated. She's hardworking. In another brief, she would, I think, have been an effective minister. But everybody knew that Tulip Siddiq had these close relationships with her family in Bangladesh. She had, whether or not she had a financial relationship, there was a political relationship there as well. Everybody knew the nature of the politics of Bangladesh. Everybody knew the nature of the political party of which her close family members were active members. This to appoint her as anti-corruption minister was an accident waiting to happen.
Of course it was.
And everybody knew it.
And also, let's not pretend that he was at arm's length from all of this, Keir Starmer, because he had entertained her family, including the leader of Bangladesh, her auntie, in the Houses of Parliament when he was leader of the opposition. According to Guido Fawkes, and I haven't independently nailed this down, he saw her as recently as last month.
Well, I mean, McManus was very clear. He said, he effectively said, you can't keep her in that role. But the question is, what was she appointed to that role in the first place?
Exactly.
And again, we're not talking about something just emerging, years into the government. We're only just past Keir Starmer's 100 days, and it's happened again.
Yeah.
He's lost Sue Gray, we all know the dodginess that surrounded her appointment.
Yeah.
He lost Luhay after it emerged she'd admitted to fraud, and now he's lost his anti-corruption minister at the heart of an anti-corruption scandal. And the key thing is this is where I think it matters politically, because this is becoming like the constant narrative. Keir Starmer was elected on a mandate of change and being different from the Tories. We can see, particularly in this area of personal probity, he and his ministers and MPs are no different.
No, of course they're not.
They may not be any worse. They may not be any worse.
No, they may not be any worse, but that's not the point.
And they're not any better.
And that's not the point.
And we now need, from Keir Starmer and the Labour Party and the Cabinet, on this issue of public probity, transparency, honesty, integrity, government service, shut up. Just shut up about all that stuff now. Right. You are bang to rights. You know, Keir Starmer runs around saying, oh, it's really terrible. You know, we have to fix politics because the voters think we're all just as bad as each other. The voters think you're all just as bad as each other because you are all just as bad as each other.
That's exactly right.
As I say, you're no worse, you're no better. You're not devils.
Yeah, you're not the Caped Crusader of, you know, probity. Let's face it. Let's just in case he does shut up about it, which I doubt that he will. Let's remind ourselves of what he said in 2023 about Dominic Raab.
Because there's a double weakness here. He should never have appointed him in the first place, along with other members of the Cabinet that shouldn't have been appointed. And then he didn't sack him. And even today, it's Raab who resigns rather than the Prime Minister who acts. No matter how many times you change the person at the top, you've essentially got a party that just can't deliver, just can't govern. Well, the big question for the Prime Minister is why he was so weak to appoint him in the first place. The second question for the Prime Minister is why he didn't sack him. And now it's left to Dominic Raab to resign, and the Prime Minister hasn't acted. And it's that indecision, it's that weakness, I think, that goes to the heart, not just of this Prime Minister, but of 13 years now of failure.
I mean, it's uncanny. Apart from the 13 years of failure bit, he could have been talking about himself. And that is, of course, before he had the free glasses from old Lord Ali, when he didn't think he needed them.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've just said it. I mean, that. You know, you could just transpose. I mean, we'll have Kemi Badenoch on saying exactly the same thing today, I'm sure. I mean, Kemi Badenoch, she's got her own problems, but she's not going to miss an open goal like.
Surely she'll get this one right, for heaven's sake.
Well, absolutely. Well, let's wait and see.
You never know. You never know. I said this earlier to Theo Usher, it's all about the question. She has to get the question right, because if she gives him a question that he can slither around and get out of, that won't be good. But, I mean, you point out as well that after she was removed, and again, I said this to Theo, he's got some kind of sort of political flaw in his character, because even with his accepting her resignation, he says, basically, I appreciate that to end ongoing distraction from delivering our agenda to change Britain, you have made a difficult decision and want to be clear that the door remains open for you going forward. Well, that will come back to haunt him as well if she ends up being charged with something in Bangladesh.
But the key thing here is, and it comes back to what I say about this treating the public like they're idiots. He's essentially claiming you have done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to let you go from my government anyway.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows that is just utterly preposterous. The reality is the allegations against Tulip Siddiq have been running for weeks, if not months, if not in certain instances years now.
Right.
Again, she contests them and refutes them. But the reality is, Keir Starmer did, as we saw the clip there, the Dominic Raab clip, Keir Starmer did not want to act. He finally realised he had to act, cobbled together this thing where Tulip Siddiq referred herself to the Ministerial Standards watchdog. But we all know that was choreographed with Downing Street. The watchdog has been very clear and basically said she should not have been in this she should not have been in this role in the first place, and she certainly shouldn't be in this role going forward. And Keir Starmer, but rather than stand up and say, fair enough, it was an error in judgment on my part, I shouldn't have appointed her, this is not compatible with my pious pledges about a government of service and cleaning up the Westminster swamp, my bad. he tries to style it by.
Yeah.
And the point is this is not going to be the last one.
Of course it won't be.
We're going to be back here in a few months' time. There'll be another minister or another Labour MP. There'll be another scandal. And as I said, you know, Keir Starmer needs to get off this now.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to hear any more from Keir Starmer or any of his ministers about how they're going to change the culture of politics, etc. You know, that
he
ended.
needs to give up on this government of service cobblers as well, as you quite rightly say. Stop saying.
I mean, who speaks like that anyway?
Right.
I mean, who speaks like that anyway? But the point is, all of that ended, as you rightly pointed out. It ended with the glasses, ended with the flats, ended with the dresses, ended with the football freebies. That it ended with, you know, the free passes.
Which he's still getting, by the way, as we found out last week.
Well, I mean,
you know, it's just ridiculous. But let me ask you about the replacement, because your penultimate paragraph today, Tulip Siddiq has been replaced by Emma Reynolds, who, it would appear within hours, it emerged that she's lobbied intensely against tougher business curbs on China.
Well, this is the bizarre thing. Emma Reynolds is appointed as Tulip Siddiq's replacement. I'm not entirely sure if she's her replacement as anti-corruption minister, although there's no suggestion Emma Reynolds has been involved in any corruption. I'm not sure she's got that title, but she's a Treasury minister.
Yeah.
It then emerges that Emma Reynolds, it's a matter of public record, has been, before she became a minister, was lobbying intensively on behalf of China to improve the trading relationship, to lobby against the imposition of stringent trading rules on China, to basically make a more favourable trading regime for China. Now, when this first emerged, the government, the Downing Street reportedly said she will not have any responsibility for China. There would in effect be, quite literally, a Chinese wall in terms of her dealings with China. She's now been promoted to this relatively senior Treasury role 48 hours after Rachel Reeves came back from China, saying building trading relationships, engaging with China, my department engaging with China is absolutely vital. So I'm not entirely sure how that is supposed to work. How can Emma Reynolds conduct her responsibilities whilst hiving off from those responsibilities engagement with one of the world's our potential most important trading partners? Again, it doesn't make sense. And again, it's indicative that Keir Starmer does not think, is incapable of thinking, you know, a move ahead, never mind 2, 3, 4 moves ahead. And again, it raises questions about his judgment.
It really does. And once again, returning to the pool of talent, he's now brought back into the tent the bloke who came up with the Edstone idea, isn't he? Torsten Bell, who appears to have been now promoted once again. He's the guy that came up with that ridiculous idea that Ed Miliband should have the old tablets of stone. I don't know what he's going to bring to the party. Well,
this actually plays in to a concern a number of members of the cabinet have got with, again, the direction of Keir's government. So somebody was saying to me last week, cabinet minister was saying to me last week, the problem is it's not really Keir's government, it's Ed Miliband's government. Now this is just going to feed into that. Now, let's be clear, a number of people think Torsten Bell's well respected, has some good economic ideas, but politically, as you pointed out,
well, he remembered the one thing.
Exactly, and and this is a government at the moment which basically does not seem to know its posterior from its elbow when it comes to the politics, and this is just again gonna feed into that. And again, it's not as if Keir Starmer is short of MPs. Right? He's got plenty of MPs. He's got a significant amount of talent amongst the new intake he can promote. He's got a significant amount of talent amongst the old intake that he could have promoted. And reaching out for Torsten, whatever his strengths, is something that is already raising eyebrows. And again, the point goes back to the point I think I was making when I was on last week. Keir Starmer is just fighting on too many fronts.
Yeah.
There's just too much going on. We've got inflation figures coming out later today, which are predicted to be dire.
Yeah, we've got them here. They're actually down from 2.5 to 2.5% from 2.6%, so not much change, really.
Oh, well, that's not too... Well, actually, that's not too bad. It appears to not be too bad, because there's some concern the figures were going to go up, so maybe he can catch.
I mean, it's not inconceivable there's been a bit of jiggery-pokery there as well.
Well, I mean, I'd be surprised at that, to be honest. But I mean, it's not. No one's going to be breaking out their champagne over.
Well, it's not like, yay! You know, we've got 0.1% down. Right, brilliant.
We've still got the issue. We've got an increasing number of Labour MPs coming out, going against him on the need for a grooming gang. Obviously, we've got freezing weather. We've still got the flu backlog in hospitals. He can't afford these continued own goals. Not because suddenly, the government's going to go and we're going to have a general election and whatever, but eventually the idea that Keir Starmer just, couldn't run a whelk stall is going to get embedded. And once that gets embedded, then he's never going to dig himself out of it, whatever he does. Exactly
right. Because, I mean, we haven't really much talked about Rachel Reeves. I mean, one good piece of news, I suppose, for the Labour government is that Tulip Siddiq has been a distraction over the past 24 hours. We haven't really spoken about Rachel Reeves, but she's still deep in the doo-doo as well. And there's a pretty good chance that she won't make it to the one-year anniversary, I would say, of the Labour government.
Well, I think that's obviously dependent on what happens in the markets. I don't agree with you there. Because quite simply, Keir Starmer throws his Chancellor out the balloon within a year. He might as well jump out the balloon himself. I mean, we saw with Liz Truss what happened when she tried to dump it all on Kwasi Kwarteng. We famously saw it when Margaret Thatcher fell out with her Chancellor. So, that's
and
he
knows that, sure.
Yeah, and he knows that. That's too. So, for good or ill, Rachel is going to be there for a while. I've got to say, though, I mean, fair play to her. I mean, she did the statement yesterday. She made Mel Stride look like an idiot, to be perfectly honest. She knocked him all around the House of Commons, and that is the one thing
she did, and she was very good actually. But unfortunately, an awful lot of the words and the bluster were just that. They were just words and bluster. They weren't. If you actually listen to what they were, there was no truth to them. She kept talking about stability and making people better off. Neither of which are true things that are going on.
Maybe not, but she, it was a good, strong performance, and it did. I mean, it did just act as a slight corrective to remember one thing: whatever the problems Labour have got, whatever the problems Reeves has got, that Starmer's got, the country's got, the Tories, frankly, are still a shambles.
Yeah,
the Tories are nowhere. The Tories are nowhere. We keep seeing now Nigel Farage reform consistently polling ahead of the Tories. That is. It's not an aberration. That is indicative of where the Tories are at the moment. And despite all the issues that the government's got, until there is some sort of effective opposition that is effective in the sense of being a potential alternative government, whatever problems the government has, Starmer has, Reeves have, ministers have, frankly, they're going to be able to get away with it to an extent because the Tories just aren't on the path.
They're not. Dan, thanks very much indeed. Dan Hodges there from the Mail on Sunday, who's basically questioned this morning the government of service line by Keir Starmer. What on earth is the point of it? It's a load of old cobblers, in his words.